Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be all about the Salem witch trials. I feel like I know every YouTuber has done this video before, so I kind of wanted to do something a bit different because I asked you guys what you guys wanted to see, and a lot of you still said that you wanted to see the Salem witch trial video, but I wanted to make it a bit different. So I'm going to talk about not only the history of the Salem witch trial, what actually happened, but also about the places that are now to this day haunted, likely because of the Salem witch trial and because of all the people who died wrongfully, and we're going to talk about that. It's just so crazy how long I've wanted to go to Salem. This actually year it was supposed to go, but unfortunately coronavirus happened, so I guess I'll have to wait till hopefully next year. And once I do go, I would love to do a video going to all of these places, because I don't know, I don't think I've ever been to a haunted place, so I'm very curious about how that would go for me because I am terrified of ghosts. But anyway, and also don't forget that if you've missed any of the videos that I've posted this week, I'm posting every day till Halloween, so definitely go check those other videos out if you want some spooky content, I guess. But yeah, so I'm going to start with a briefing of what went down, why the Salem witch trials even happened in the first place, and then we're gonna go into the kind of spooky haunted stuff. So let's get into it. So the Salem witch trials took place in the late 1600s in, of course, Salem, Massachusetts. Salem Village was actually a super religious town. They were Christians, but more importantly, they were Puritans, which is basically the purest form of Christianity. It's you follow the Bible pretty strictly. According to the Puritans, pretty much anybody who didn't exactly follow the Bible word for word were either evil, of the devil, or just straight up weird, they just didn't want to talk to them. So this created a lot of problems within Salem. In 1689, Reverend Samuel Parris became the first ordained minister in Salem. In January of 1692, Reverend Samuel Parris's daughter Elizabeth, who was 9 years old at the time, and his niece Abigail Williams, who was 11, started experiencing very odd behavior. They were just overall acting really weird. These girls would scream and throw things. Their bodies were literally convulsing, which would be so scary. Could you imagine? But either way, they had the town doctor come in and try to figure out what the hell was wrong with these kids. And the doctor basically said that something paranormal, something supernatural was happening to these kids. And they basically suggested some type of bewitchment, which was why any of this even happened. So these kids are acting weird, throwing things, having tantrums basically, and we decide that it is of the supernatural. This became a big thing because a bunch of different girls and women in Salem started having all of these weird behaviors, screaming fits, convulsions, all that stuff. So everyone was what the hell is going on? And most of the people in Salem thought that something very dark was amongst them. In February of 1692, Elizabeth and Abigail actually accused 3 women of bewitching them. It is extremely likely and now widely believed that the 2 judges that were kind of taking over this entire case of bewitchment, aka Jonathan Corwin and Jonathan Hathorne, it is very widely believed that they influenced the girls to point out that these 3 specific women were witches. So the women in question were Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, Sarah Osborne, an impoverished elderly woman, and a woman named Tituba, who was actually Reverend Parris's slave. So Tituba was obviously a woman of color, and this was a common theme throughout the Salem witch trials. Either poor people or people of color were the ones who were convicted of witchcraft. So obviously it stems back to racism and classism, but honestly, I don't think anybody's quite shocked about that. So Sarah Osborne and Sarah Good both actually said that they were innocent for as long as they lived. They actually died because of the Salem witch trials way later though. Tituba actually said that this was true. Tituba confessed by saying, "The devil came to me and bid me serve him." So Tituba described the devil as this man in all black who wanted her to sign this book. She claims that this book also had the signatures of other witches in Salem who wanted hurt the Puritans. Tituba's saying that there was a bunch of other people who wanted to destroy the Puritans that were witches is kind of what escalated the whole thing, even though it was probably not even true. So many people believe that, you know, all of the women and men who were accused of witchcraft were innocent, and that some of them just confessed because it would stop them from being executed, which was true because Tituba wasn't. She went to jail, actually all 3 women did, but she didn't end up dying. She actually was freed from prison. I guess we have no way to know whether or not these people were actually practicing witchcraft, but I think obviously the majority of people believe that they definitely weren't, including me. I mean, obviously I know witchcraft exists and people do it all the time and it's not an evil thing and all that stuff, but I also just feel like these women were probably not witches, and it's really messed up because you can see who they were pointing to. It was people of color and people who didn't have like a high status in Salem, like the poor people. So I just feel like it was pretty targeted. So I don't think that this is actually, I don't think they were practicing witchcraft at all, but you never know, I guess. Because the type of people who were being accused of being witches was so pointed and obvious, a lot of people believe that the Puritans just basically wanted to get rid of anyone in Salem who wasn't white and wealthy. So this became the beginning of a very long year that the Salem witch trials would continue. So the first like big trial was with Bridget Bishop. Bridget Bishop's trial was taken to a special court, and she was actually the first woman who was executed on Gallows Hill on June 10th of 1692. However, we're going to talk about how Gallows Hill isn't exactly where we thought it was for as long as we did a bit later. Sadly, Bridget became the first of at least 20 people that we know of that were executed in the Salem witch trials. Obviously, if these women weren't witches, what is the cause of all of these like children and young women acting so strangely? People have a lot of theories. Some people believe that they were set up by their parents to act this way so that Salem could, you know, become this solely Puritan, Christian, white, wealthy area. But I kind of don't think that that makes sense, just because there were so many people who were saying that all of these like strange things were happening to them. I think what makes more sense is what we found out more recently in evidence, which is that in their crops, basically, it was discovered that there was actually a fungus that it was basically a hallucinogenic. So the rye crops during the time were actually pretty infected with this fungus, and that would basically make, like, if they made a loaf of bread with the infected rye, it would literally be like a drug. Like, it would make them hallucinate, could cause body convulsions, shaking, anxiety, all that stuff. So it is pretty crazy because that's probably what actually happened. Anyway, so that is a brief-ish history lesson for you on the Salem witch trials. So obviously paranormal people probably assume that their souls of the, you know, victims of the Salem witch trial are rather unsettled and probably still haunting Salem to date. I think because of the witch trials and because of the history of Salem, it is probably one of the most haunted towns in America, and I want to go so bad. I love history and I just think it's so interesting, and I will be going at some point soon. I'm very excited about it. But for now, let's just talk about the most haunted places that I will eventually get to visit. So the first is, of course, the Hawthorne Hotel. The Hawthorne Hotel was built in 1923, which is obviously well after the Salem witch trials. However, the Hawthorne Hotel was actually built on site of the apple orchard that was owned by none other than Bridget Bishop, who was obviously, like we talked about earlier, the first person who was executed in the Salem witch trials. So it's actually said that room 612 is super haunted, specifically haunted by Bridget Bishop. People claim that they see her walking around the halls near 612, and that's terrifying. But nonetheless, also people say that they can smell apples wafting throughout the entirety of the hotel, which is pretty scary. I feel like I want to go there so bad and see if it just like smells like apples, but I don't know. So yeah, people think that Bridget is the person who is haunting that Hotel. So the next place in Salem that is likely haunted because of the witch trials is the old Burying Point Cemetery. This cemetery is known to be extremely haunted, specifically because Judge Jonathan Hawthorne was buried in this cemetery. So Jonathan Hawthorne was the main judge, who they referred to as the hanging judge. He was typically the one who sentenced the alleged witches to be hung. So pretty morbid, and people claim that they see his spirit walking around the cemetery, which I would literally lose my mind and cry. It doesn't surprise me that he's haunting the place, and it's pretty crazy that like his grave like is still there like 300 years later. Like, history is so crazy. So the next place I'm sure you've heard of, it is the witch house. I don't even actually know why it's even called the witch house, because it was actually the house of Judge Jonathan Corwin. Jonathan Corwin also helped serve 19 people to their death during the Salem witch trials. So it is said that his house, which is the oldest building in Salem, it is actually the only building that directly ties back to the Salem witch trials that's still standing, which is so crazy. Like, 300 years this house has been there. Like, it's nuts. So this house not only is known as haunted, but it's actually a museum now. You can go to it. Pretty crazy to me, because I just think being there would be so interesting to know that like these people like were there, like their beds are there, like their, you know, utensils are just there like for over 300 years. Like, that's so weird and so like kind of cool, even though he was like a horrible person. But either way, it's like crazy. So people think that he is haunting the house, and also his children, but also the souls of the people that he executed, people believe are haunting the Corwin house. Visitors experience a chilling feeling, you know, like temperature drops, and seeing different spirits walking around and roaming around this house. I think it's definitely haunted. It's definitely one of the more haunted places in Salem, probably like #1, I think most people would say. And nonetheless, I think it's very scary, and I like really want to go because it's cool, because it's like history but also so scary. I'm sure that place is haunted. Like, it's so old. The last place that we're going to be talking about is Protector's Ledge. So Protector's Ledge is actually where they are now saying that the Salem witch trials like executions were happening, because for a long time people thought it was on Gallows Hill. So not only were the people of the Salem witch trials executed here, but they were actually thrown over the edge as well, because they didn't believe that, you know, a witch should have a proper burial, which is so messed up. So people think that a lot of unrested souls lie here, and that Protector's Ledge is probably one of the most haunted places in Salem. And I just think it's so creepy, and I want to go visit so badly because it's so sad, and so many people were wrongfully, you know, murdered because they were allegedly witches, which is just ridiculous, and also most likely not even accurate. So it's just really sad. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson slash little haunted moment. But that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the Salem witch trials. Let me know if you've ever visited Salem. I would love to know. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram, because I'm always posting really dope ass shit on there. Subscribe for new videos every week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.